Before we begin, two messages. Here's a riddle. How do you build native cross-platform mobile applications quickly without having to rewrite code and hire consultants at a huge cost? Titanium from Appcelerator. Called the easy button for mobile application development, it allows you to focus more on what's important, getting product out the door. Join the more than 1.5 million active developers who have created over 13,000 apps at www.appcelerator.com. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Hello everybody, welcome to Untether.tv. My name is Rob Woodward, your host, and this is where I take you on a magical tour of those guys that are reinventing mobile or inventing it as the industry is growing as well. This is where I interview mobile rock stars. And I take a little bit of a side turn here because something grabbed my attention. It's actually a local Ottawa company, and you know how I love my city of Ottawa and the entrepreneurs that are in it. And this is a company called Deckster, and I'm joined by the co-founder, Dom Coballe, and I got to talk a little bit about this because this is the first piece of hardware that I've actually sat down and had an interview of somebody who's building this. But this is a little bit unique. It is a timepiece where you literally insert your iPod Nano into a wristband and it becomes a watch. It's a really terrible rendition because it's a beautiful product. And I asked Dom to come on here for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the first is that this is a pretty neat idea. And I think it just shows how this industry is evolving. And it's great for the mobile industry when people like Dom start creating accessories for the mobile devices themselves. Cradles or dodo cases or all those things help really cement this industry. And the second thing is that he's taken a really interesting tack on how to finance this and has had some great mentors and assistants in this. So we're going to hear it all from Dom. Dom, man, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you telling the story, dude.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm a co-founder. I'm a partner with my lovely wife and business partner. And we started a little company, we like to call it a lifestyle product company. And the company name is actually End Product.
Yep.
And our first product, like you said, is the Deckster. And to quickly jump into it, we started it when we saw the new form factor of the Nano, where Jobs and Co. incorporated the multi-touch. It kind of sent a little shock to our brain cells that, you know what, this could be the start of something, right? Sure, it was a bet, but we're betting on a pretty good horse, right? Like, if Apple does something this drastic, it's rare that they don't follow through on a couple of iterations and things like that. Right. So what you said from the beginning was pretty bang on. That sure, we're a hardware company with this product in particular, but I come from a background of branding and marketing and UI and UX, right? And we're trying to kind of complement the user experience of the Nano itself with our timepiece design. So we came up with the concept, which is a brilliant idea that my wife came up with, and kind of instantly we knew we had to pursue this. So we wanted to start a company and get back into making products of some sort. I'm a product guy at heart. I love industrial design, cool little stuff like that. That you have a real personal kind of user experience, right? You share something with these either mobile devices, a pair of shoes, amazing umbrella, like the list goes on. That the experience has to be there for you to cherish this inanimate object. So the concept behind this was we're kids of the 80s, Rob, kind of like you. So Walkman, tape decks, and mixtapes were pretty much a standard thing.
Absolutely.
In our bag of gear when we were growing up, right? So the Nano, sure, it was cool as a multi-touch, but it's still about music. So we thought, okay, so how do we make a really high-end piece to really complement the industrial design of Apple, right? Because the first out of the gate, they're really fast to come out of the market. We didn't come up with this Nano watch concept, but like all the ones that came up were really kind of flimsy and cheap, and really kind of took away from the greatness that is Apple, right? Like, so we said, okay, like let's come out strong. Let's make the highest end possible. So we wanted to make something that kind of replicated watches that we really liked from the 50s and 60s all the way up to the 70s, right? So it was all rubber and plastic and stuff. So we said, okay, let's take the aluminum that the Nano came from. Let's use that as an outer jacket, and then have leather straps that is kind of like those tank watches, you know, like the actual watch that we wanted to really, really like take as design inspiration was, do you remember the actor Steve McQueen?
Sure.
Right? He was in a movie called Le Mans, where he was a race car driver, and he wore a Tag Heuer monocle, right? And this is just a beautiful watch. It's like one of these things that I dreamt about as a boy, right? Like my dad was a watch guy, so he kind of passed that passion on to me. And Christelle, my wife, we both love these watches, right? So we're like, okay, let's try to, in our way, update this look. And so it's a tape deck mechanism that you pop up, and then you insert the Nano. That I'll give you a little preview here. Here's one of our first prototypes. I don't know if you can see that, right? So pops up, that slides out, close. And it should pop up. It's a little sticky. There you go. This is the first prototype, so it's been like dismantled and reassembled several times, but like you just easily slide it in.
Yep.
There you go. There's your.
Pretty amazing. And there's your. I mean, it's almost like you had to create something. We've seen a lot of these watches out there, but you had to create something where the chassis was as beautiful as the device, right? As the Nano. That's what the goal here, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was one of these things that it's good and bad, right? If you're making accessories for Apple products, you've got a pretty good pedigree that you have to follow, right? Like, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to take the design cues and the kind of like design passion to kind of perfect these little details, right?
Yep.
And it's taken us, for product design, this is our first foray into physical product design of this sophistication and this level, that it's about 7 months in, and we have a functional prototype, which is blazing fast, right? Like, as you know, that doesn't really happen. It's happening more now with rapid prototyping and things like that, and having smaller outfits that you can use their CNC machines and things like that. But like you said, like we had to be super finicky, because the people who are selling to them, then we always made a fashion play for this thing, that we always described it as a metal jacket with paired with leather bands. That this Nano is actually a fashion accessory, right? That has watch capabilities, but it's our interest in the Nano in particular is like part of the bet is we're hoping that they open it up to iOS eventually,
right?
Because it's sure we want to make this experience great like that, but it's in our gut that we feel, and I don't know if you share the same feeling, that they've kind of owned every experience, right? Up until this point, they've got the 10-foot, right? The 2 feet, the inches, and now moving on to the wrist, that there seems to be a play there that makes sense, that either connects with your laptop, your iPad, or your iPhone, that there seems to be one link missing, and we're betting that it's the wrist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the wrist was, where Dick Tracy started, right? And and ultimately, you can see an iOS device with a front-facing camera on a wrist, on something like on a Nano. And but even if that doesn't happen, the play here is simply that. I've always hesitated against a Nano simply because I'm going to lose that thing in a second. If it's not tied down, if it's not, I can't feel it in my pocket or in my hand, I worry that I'm going to lose it. And if I clip it onto something, I know I'm going to lose it. But what was the inspiration for this? Was it just that, you were looking for a timepiece and you said, listen, this is the natural marriage for this? Why get into this? Because, we talked about it just before. We talked about it a lot, actually. But this seems like it could be just a 1 or 2 year deal, right? Where you build something like this, and in a year from now you're going to be looking at something else to build under end product. So what's the inspiration? Why do it?
The inspiration was really it was a great kind of leap pad to actually introduce our brand, right? It's like it introduces some of the manufacturing philosophy and the marketing philosophy that we are passionate about. That's tightly kind of like woven into our company values, right? So we wanted to make a splash. There's no kind of kidding about. We wanted to be attached with Apple, right?
Right.
And the Nano is the newest ecosystem of accessories and product with this new form factor that there's beautiful accessories and cases for iPhone and iPads, but this is the new thing. It was a little new, shinier, right? Like people are still getting used to it. That's what we find that in the marketing of this product that there is an appetite developing, but it's so new as an ecosystem. People are not ready, but we wanted to be on that first wave.
It's a good place to be, that's for sure. I mean, look what happened to Dodo Case, right? Which is a perfect example of a, not really part of the first group of accessories, but really the first to add a personality to something that like a case, right? Everything else was black and dull or leather, and the Nano or the Dodo Case came out and said, "Well, listen, we're going to change this up a little bit," and they kind of did well.
Yeah, Dodo Case is one of these companies that we really admire on a personal level, but also on a business level, that they have a great brand narrative that they what they created, and it's what we're trying to create, is if you want a case for your iPad, you can get one at Best Buy for $10. They created fans who wanted a Dodo case.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a difference there.
They built that brand
through like authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's hard work. We love the kind of notion that it's all locally made. Right. Part of our branding play is that we've modified the slow movement to incorporate what we call the slow goods movement. That when we were growing up, we loved how your shirt, my shoes might have had made in Canada, made in USA, right? You felt a certain pride to that.
This one has made in my backyard, really, quite frankly.
Really? Did you screen the backyard?
Yep, that's it. Limited run.
That's the thing, though, right? Like there's some sort of personal connection there. And so when we set out to do this, one of our goals, which was foolish by any standards for a product company, was we wanted to make it in North America, onshore. China is always an option, but not for us, right? And so that delayed.
Just because?
It was really because of what we felt that, okay, well, you know what? In our small way, we're sure. Have you heard of a cottage industry, Rob?
Yeah.
We're the shack behind that, right? We're tiny, right? We're nobodies, right?
So, Dom, Untether is broadcasting from the shack behind your shack. How's that? Yes. Cottage industry, definitely.
That's the thing, right? Like, so luckily that we had some savings. We don't have to answer to investors. We don't have to answer to stakeholders, right? It's based on our values. So we can ride that out, right? Like, and it's something that is important to us.
So, I mean, so you decided to, I mean, this is part of, you mentioned it before, your manufacturing philosophy, which was, listen, we want it to be made in North America, highest quality product. This isn't the cheapest watch accessory that you can get. But does that all fit into it? It's like, you know what? MacBook Pro was just rated, did a clean sweep on all laptops, that are made available on Consumers Report. And they just did a clean sweep for ease of, like, everything. And these things are $1,000 more than every other laptop out there. So they're onto something here about that kind of quality of the construction. Was that the same, thinking that went into your manufacturing philosophy?
Yeah, it's definitely a model. It's funny that some of the lessons we've learned in manufacturing products, right, is that sure, quality is attainable in Asia only if you are the size of a small state like Apple, right? Like that's where you can really, quality control is their thing, and you can see that in the Apple products that we own, that the fit and finish, impeccable.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
100%, right? And we were only able to achieve that in North America by, like, we were working full time, or we're still working full time, so we're able to make day trips to Montreal. We've met with our suppliers in Portland for the aluminum casing and things like that to see. We couldn't do that right? So even if we didn't have a philosophical kind of rationale into manufacturing onshore, we can do it as a small company to have someone on the ground overseas and make sure, it's like, if these drawings say that it's this level of detail and precision, they need to be met, not close, not, well, you know what, we tried our best, right? And we're able to do that because our packaging and leather is made in Montreal, so we make multiple trips there. And we have a rep from Toronto that represents the Portland company. Yeah. And so we were able to really stay on top of it while working full time, right? So it's one of these things that the formula was really convoluted, a little complicated than it needed to be, but it worked out in our favor and in the product's favor, that we came with something that once a consumer sees it and we're shopping the prototype around, it does create this wow factor. And the best reaction we can ever get is, wow, that makes me want a Nano, right? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like one of these things, like, that's very, very cool to hear. So
you this is your first product, Dom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is your first product, and so this is the first thing that you've built from the ground up. You said, listen, we got an idea, we're going to do a little blueprint, we're going to do a prototype, we're going to go back and forth on this, we're going to source all the materials and everything like that, and we're going to build this thing to this specification. That's got to be a tough thing to step into, for anybody who out there who's trying to think of building a product, building an actual physical product. What were the biggest challenges that you ran into when you were doing this? Like, where to start, who to call,
The biggest challenges, and you know this from heading a few firms, is it's time of day. Like there's not enough time, like hours in the day to get shit done, right? Like, yeah, I'm familiar with product manufacturing. It was kind of like one of the things that I've really learned, that I don't know if we could have done this 10 years ago. It's kind of going back to the Malcolm Gladwell thing of, like, you need 10 years to really perfect your craft and things like that. You also need 10 years to really perfect your network. Yeah. And we've used our network. You talked about local Ottawa business, and we're huge fans of the city of Ottawa, right? Like, we've turned the corner about 7 years ago, my wife and I, and we said, okay, we're going to dig down, we're going to set roots, we're going to, in our small way, help make this city a little bit cooler, a little bit more progressive, right? In our small way. So what we did right away was I started assembling a team, right? Mm-hmm. A team of, so we had, I did some illustrations, some renderings on napkins and things like that, talking about the functionalities, collected a bunch of information, and then we sought out a firm to do engineering, because we needed engineering and we needed some industrial design to get the parts made, right? So we sourced out an Ottawa firm, right? And this is all in kind of like in parallel. Right away, we knew we wanted to go straight to consumer. So before we had a product or anything like that, we need to attach ourselves to a platform. We use Shopify, right? Another great Ottawa story, yes. Right? We wanted to use as much as Ottawa as we possibly could, like local CNC factories, or shops rather, a one-man outfit to do this first prototype and things like that. So right away, it was like getting that, having the web, right? It's kind of silly to say, it's kind of obvious, but it was such a huge tool, because our shift was 9 to 2 a.m. Yeah. And so we emailed or replied to emails or send out request emails for quotes and things like that during that shift. And it allowed us to, like, get this done while collecting a paycheck. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So the hardest thing at that time was just kind of aligning the times to get on the phone, conference call, video chat, to talk to anybody who can kind of expedite this process. Because we talked about, I think the announcements was September 10th, right? I foolishly, as a joke while I was watching it, tweeted, I'm going to make a Nano watch, right? Just as a joke, right? And then about November, we had locked down our design and everything, but it took us up until February to say, okay, we can make it at the quality level and as a price point that is marketable, right? So it pretty fast, but I don't know how much faster it could have been, because we were also dependent on other people's time. That sure, like you said, if anyone's ever renovated a home, a kitchen, stuff like that, it's always twice as long, twice as expensive, right? And product development is the same thing. That it's been really fast, but not fast enough, and it's never fast enough, right?
No, I mean, it would seem that way because, I think the best thing to be able to do, you're taking a risk every time you build something like this. Is that you're putting something together, you're going to go through the process, you're selling on spec, you're gauging people's interest on spec, and on what maybe the market is telling you, and then you're going to go and invest a whole bunch of money in building this out, and then hope that somebody's going to want to buy it.
Hope, right? Like luck. Timing and luck are these variables that, as an entrepreneur, is that you can make the most well-educated guesstimate, but sheer luck, though, is one of these things that you can't rely on, or you can't even fathom, right? Like
it starts there, but I mean, so you said you had a manufacturing philosophy, and then you also have a marketing philosophy, which is. I mean, we touched on a little bit around, a company like Dodo Case, the guys who do that, and the fact that you want to build a brand, and you come from the design, UX, UI background. You know exactly what you wanted to build and how you wanted to portray it. But what is that marketing philosophy? You take your messaging from the manufacturing philosophy, and you say, listen, we're supporting North American industry, we're supporting Ottawa companies. But then also there's got to be that brand building and I mean, talk through that, because this is the challenge, getting awareness.
Some of that brand building and brand narrative really plays well with the manufacturing process that we've chosen. That we wanted to always come out as the highest end option in this collection. I think when we started designing this, there was maybe 6 or 7. Now there might be 20. 25, right? And I think since we've launched, 3 more have come out, right? We are still at the highest end of that spectrum, but that brand play really ties into the manufacturing, because our numbers are always going to be low. We never wanted to be mass. Mm-hmm. We never wanted to be in millions of homes and things like that, right? So that's one of the things that as a company we made a decision. It's like, what kind of impact do we want? Do we want in one room, one individual to have it, right? And so we made design calls that forced it to be really exclusive, quote unquote, right? Because we're matching almost the price of the Nano, but in the way that it's made, that I have one of the 3rd generations Nano. These things last a long time, right? So we're hoping that you'll have something that will last just as long. Right, like we use terms like heirlooms and things like that. Things that we just appreciate. That we're going to build things that last, right? And you're going to see that translate in our product. Like our leather bands are handmade. That doesn't really ever happen anymore, right? Not until the scale that we're talking about. That it's stitched. It's done by crafts people in Montreal who've been doing it for 50 years, right? Like, so it's one of these things that it's like the same conversation that we talk about. Okay, how do we want to be perceived as a brand, as a product? It's how it came to be. Is exactly how we want to be perceived. That it's something of value. That it's not a disposable item by any means, right? And the numbers in price, the numbers in production, that it's going to reflect that we have different styles, but each style globally, it's going to be maybe 1,000 made, right? After that, we're going to move on to a different style, or we're going to move on to a different product. But what we were talking about is like it's fashion items for technology enthusiasts. Those are the 2 things we wanted to bridge with this company. That it's got classical design elements and things like that, rich history behind the manufacturing, but at the heart of it is like this technological gem, right? That is the Nano. That so anytime that we talk about our company, we talk a lot about the partners that we work with, right? Because we're really proud about that. Right? It's like, and we're just one small outfit that's bringing that together. We're inspired by a lot of other companies currently doing it really well, right? In the States, in Europe, in Canada, and things like that. It's kind of bringing this whole kind of philosophy back that we want to be part of that conversation as well.
So I want to touch on a couple of things here. Is that what are the you know, there's the philosophy is interesting because it is a I mean it's an elevated brand, shall we say? But if you even look at the history of a company like Apple, is it and you go back and you compare their first product with their latest product, right? So you just go back that stream and you know, from the very first Apple computer that ever left the warehouse. I mean, it was a terribly ugly piece of junk, comparatively, right? I mean,
Yeah.
be honest. I mean, you know, their product today evokes an emotion that isn't like I'm going to throw up because it's so ugly, right? But back then it may have seemed beautiful, but it wasn't. It was terrible. They really switched. I mean, the cachet that came from their product happened, I think, when they started doing, you know, unibody aluminum casing and you know, did a rounded back on the iPhone, or just launched an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod. But so lessons were learned there about exclusivity. But some of these companies that are mass producing the same thing, the same kind of product that you've got, are going to end up in, you know, you said you wanted to have one person in a room with yours, but the other 9 or 10 or however many people might have the other person's product or the other company's product. You know, how do you balance that between building a great, beautiful brand with a high quality, high caliber components versus the guy for, you know, $40 who's going to sell you anything that they can pop, they can support the Nano?
I think one of that's a great challenge. It's a great question, right? And it's a question that we talk about a lot, just to kind of confirm in both of our heads, like, is this what we're still about? Is this still important to us, right? Because one of the things when we started this company is everyone starts a company for one same end goal, right? To make a profit.
Yep.
But what we wanted to do was just to afford a comfortable lifestyle that can we run. I always toy with the term mom and pop, that Christelle doesn't really think it's too cute, but I love it, right? Because it's like we want to have a sustainable life for us and build a company in a certain way that we have to be super disciplined and resilient. That, you know what, to achieve that special experience, that it goes back to like the user product experience that we talked about earlier. It's like, to feel special, it has to be special, right? So you cannot be diluted by mass numbers and things like that, right? Like, it's one of these things that if you feel really special about a gorgeous shirt that you've got on, or a tie that your son bought you or you made, and stuff like that, right? Like, that automatically get diluted if you see someone else with it. It's that personal connection, right? So we right away, profits in large order, we had to be okay that wasn't our goal. Which I laugh when I talk about that, because we're definitely profit driven, but we like, it's we laugh, we cry, we argue about this conversation at home, right? Because at the end of it, we both agree what's more important to us, right? We can make this company that's great and sustain and stuff like that, but our goal is like, for you, if you ever bought one of these, or if you're rocking one of these, that every time you look at it, that half second that you spend and you just like get suspended in imagination, that is a win for us, right? So that's what we're trying to create. So how do we create that by trying to get it out there to everyone? We can't, right? It's not attainable, because it kind of defeats, it's counterproductive.
Interesting. I mean, it's an interesting thing, but I know where you're coming from. You know, it's the same reason that you know, I don't wear a watch anymore, because I carry a mobile device, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a good marriage. It's a good marriage between the two of them. And again, as you kind of scale up in who you are and what you believe in and how much money you make, and you know, there's nuances in something like Deckster, which is that I could go with somebody else, but you know, I look at an old cassette player, and I used to hit the eject button, and you know, I always took the quality by seeing how long it took to actually slide out. Right? Yeah. So if it popped out, I knew it was cheap, but I knew that if it kind of gradually came out, there was some craftsmanship built into this, and I think that that's what Deckster is. It's about the craft around the product, as well as the fact that this is actually some way of extending the life of of the Nano. Like when you go buy your next generation device, the Nano still stays because it's part of your product, right? It's now your watch.
Yeah, it's definitely something we thought about, that it's like one cannot be without the other in our head, right? Like we would like to think that we're a complement, a really nicely designed complement to the Nano, and we think we attained it.
So now you've taken some interesting approaches here for funding this. So you said that it's kind of, you don't want to be you want to manage this as a mom and pop, like a lifestyle company. At least, end product can build multiple products, and Deckster is just one of of those products at this time. But you did two things. We're going to talk about Shopify as a platform for you to be able to sell your products, because it's always interesting, and I think that it's not limited to just hardware. You can be used for everything. But you also said that you funded this on savings, and you're taking pre-orders. But you've also used a service called Seeky, which is a crowdsourcing, crowdfunding service. What's that been like?
Seeky's been a really interesting little experiment that it kind of dropped into our laps. I had reached out to a pretty major influencer in the blog world for industrial design called Yanko Design, which they profile a lot of really talented new designers, experienced veteran designers, like really concept-based. So it'll be like a hubless motorcycle or bicycle that'll never see the light of day, but everyone hopes one day someone can kind of amass the talents and the funds to get them built, right? So I reached out to them just to say, hey, listen, we're a new company. Give us some love, really. It was like no kind of like ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it's like, can you feature us, please?
Just like, begging almost? Is that
begging 100%? Yeah. And so what the founder of Yanko is a gentleman by the name of Takashi Yamada, and is a Japanese fellow who had spent some of his youth in Canada. So he contacted. He's like, hey, love Canadians, right? This is what I'm doing. I'm launching this soon, right? It's a crowdfunding, like you said, but it's the first global one, because everyone's heard of Kickstarter. Yep. There's Indiegogo, and every country has its own. But you always had to have a bank account and a residential address in that country, right? Because we had contacted Kickstarter as soon as we had this idea, and it was a no-go. There's no way we can do it, right? Like I didn't have any cousins that I can trust in the States. That's a joke. I love them, but it wasn't really an option for us, right? So when he approached us, he's like, okay, well, we have this new thing launching in a month, right? Do you guys want to be a part of it, because you guys are not in the market yet? You're still entitled to be a project. And so he pitched us, you're the only Canadian ones. We love that idea, right? Like there's companies in the States and Argentina and Taiwan, things like that. And it's like, it felt like, that the promise of that global community, like this is one of those things that, hey, this kind of felt like it, right? Like it was pretty cool, like a couple of cool projects, and they're new, and we're always, since we're the underdogs in most facets of our life, right? We always support it, like it. So we took a chance, and we wanted to try our luck at it. So we submitted a project. Ours is running for about 45 days. It's about, depending on when this goes up, and maybe a week left into it. And what it has really given us, so goal of funding, we try to raise 50% of our manufacturing costs, right? So we really had to, once again, it gave us an opportunity to talk about brand philosophy, the narrative, manufacturing philosophy, and things like that, getting our message out there. Because this is, as you know, Rob, like as a new company, right? Like getting an audience and getting your message out there is key, right? Like, and then if you can back it up with an impeccable service or product, you've won, right? But it's trying to get those early fans, right? Because right now we are one prototype and a lot of beautiful photography, right? So it's one of these things that it was an opportunity to get our message out there, and it has. It's given us like a platform on like a few international blogs. It was funny. Something that just recent happened was do you know the Sugar Network in the States?
Yeah.
So they're going to profile us, right? But it was on our pitch video. They're going to profile us because of they liked our sofa and the posters that we have on our wall. So, so a little bit off track, but we're going to still get our company story out there one way or another, right? Like,
That's hysterical.
It's hilarious, right? Like we always, when we were taking photography, Crystal and I were looking there like, did you ever think that our home, our little crappy bungalow, will get profiled in a blog or whatever? It's like, so it's really given us a great platform to talk about our product and our company.
But you know, it's funny. I mean, Seeky is an interesting thing because ultimately you raise the funds. People are supporting the project. It's kind of a gauge to determine whether or not there's an appetite for this, and I really like it. I like the concept of this very, very much, and certainly during some pretty bad times when the economy wasn't doing so well. We had and there wasn't a lot of funding going on. These things like Kickstarter kicked off, right? There's always an appetite for these kind of things. And that's what I love about this, is that there is an appetite for these. But talk about, I want to come back to that. But the branding experience that you've gone through, like Dom, obviously visual, everything on the website is beautiful. The ad, the little, the prequel, the pre-ad, I guess. For the Deckster is beautiful. The way that you framed the video, you have that talent to be able to create or evoke an emotion, and it's about that branding, that exercise of branding. I mean, everything that you've done has been very conscious, right? That, listen, this is how it's going to look. It's got to carry that that quality beacon with it. How important is that branding in what you are doing? Like, to create this brand and then to create awareness. It's got to be like the main thing.
It's absolutely like the first priority, and like you said, like we have the talent to kind of have the discipline to create it, nurture it, and like share it. Is like a part of that talent is, once again, it's like seeking out really, really talented people, and stepping back, telling them our vision, selling it to them, having them buy into it, and let them do their great work. Because that video that we're like it. Maybe I'm a little biased, but that is like top caliber, promo video for a product, right? Like it's one of these things that we worked with a great director, a friend of mine named Graham Rapsey from The Greater Good, and it was just like it's us brainstorming for about an hour on the phone, live, us picking up some old tape decks and ghetto blasters at Salvation Army and the Goodwill, and shooting in a day. And then,
by the magic of editing, we're going to watch it right now.
Nice.
And the beat go boom, ha. And the beat go boom, ha, boom, ha. And the beat go boom, ha, boom, ha. And the beat go boom, ha. Replay this till the beat go boom.
And now we're back. See, isn't that it's just beautiful.
And that's one of these pieces that it needs to kind of continue our brand story, right? It had to have a certain aesthetic. It had to have a certain pacing. The audio, again, is another one of these like do-it-yourself story that I heard this song on CBC Radio 3 one day, and it in my head I saw this video. Right? It was just one of these things that, okay, so what do? I email the music producer behind it, right, which is a local kind of musician DJ in Calgary, and give him a whole spiel, like the longest email he probably read, right, like just talking about everything. And at the end of it, it's like, I can't tell you what it's for, but I can show you what it is in about 3 months, right? And we put all this time into the video, and really another bet, because maybe he'll hate it. He has no interest, right? We just dropped a lot of time and a little bit of money into this, right? It's something we're proud of, but maybe he'll hate it,
It'll
right?
resonate. Yeah.
And he replied back one email, awesome,
Yeah.
go for it, right? And it's one of these things that it's just like you got to take these risks. You got to like, because first and foremost, we had no other option. Right? Like, this is not one of those stories of like, yeah, balls to the walls, we're doing that. It's like most of the time we had no option, so we just tried. We asked nicely, and what I realized is that seeking out talented people, but being able to share your story over and over and over again, our network became our fans.
Yeah.
So something like Seeky, the other beneficial thing about it is it's market research, right? It's really testing the water. It's like, okay, well, we're making a bet now, like on these other multiple bets that amount to a huge bet. Yeah. It's like, is anyone going to like call us on this? Is anyone going to? And people have sent us messages, emails, and it was like, it's one of these things that it's proven that there is a market appetite for something like this.
So you use Shopify, which I'm sure everybody who's watching this or listening to this has heard of Shopify. It's an online e-commerce platform that allows you to build stores very quickly, customize it. It's an Ottawa company, in case you didn't know. Another badge of pride and honor that they're in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. So you use these guys, and you're up there, and you've been up there for a while. You're accepting orders, pre-orders at Deckster.ca, deckster.ca.
Appreciate the plug.
Yeah, no problem. And if you go to Seeky.com, CKIE.com, there's a link right off of Deckster.ca. But so you're up there, you got the store, you're going, and then you get this great email saying, "Hey, listen, you've been selected as a contest winner to sit down with Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a business idol of both of ours." And then you literally spent an hour with a guy over video Skype. And why don't you share his reaction to what you're doing? So
Shopify was a platform that from the get-go, it was like a no-brainer, right? Yep. And for the second year in a row, they have this great Build a Business contest, which if you don't have a Shopify account, and I'm really plugging them mainly because I really like them as a service, right, as a company and stuff like that. So it's like no shame there.
None at all.
Should really check out this contest because the prizing, the connections that you're is made available to you as a nobody business person, entrepreneur. It's unimaginable. Like it's amazing, right? So plugging away. I'll tell you a little bit of backstory on this. And I see some tweets about a pre-contest, right? It's like win a Skype chat with Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Passed by, I was too busy or whatever. And then about an hour before the deadline that night, I see another tweet. And finally, I'm like, hey, what is this all about? I know about the contest. What is this, right? And so all it was in one of their posts on their blog is share some insight or some lesson that you've learned, right, with the community of Shopify. And win a one-on-one chat with Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, first of all, I didn't believe it, right? It was one of these things like, that's kind of ridiculous. And then second of all, only about 75 people have entered. So I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to throw our hat in the ring. I didn't even have time to like tell my wife about it, right? I was like, I entered and forgot about it. Yep. 2 days later, end up winning. And we just had the talk last week. And my mind is blown, right? It was like... Gary's one of these guys that if you're online, if you love wine, if you do business, if you love life, it's like one of these things that you've probably seen his face, heard his voice, or know him outright, right? Like I read his stuff, but never had a chance to see him talk or anything. Like I just knew that he was just like an atomic bomb of energy, right? And that conversation that I had with him, that it's going to go up on our blog. It was scheduled to be 45 minutes. We ended up talking about over an hour, and I had to redact it down to 30 minutes because I mentioned to you before that I was trying to keep my cool, just have a simple conversation with this kind of like superstar in our realm, right? Marketing and stuff and social media. And I get reduced to like blathering idiot in awe, right? It was just like, it was supposed to be kind of like a Q&A that I'll just pepper him. It's like, so how do I make $1 million? How do I make $2 million? And kind of that kind of stuff. But we just approached it as a simple conversation. And then something weird happened, right? You can see his mind working, and he's like, okay, I know what you need to do. I'm going to do this for you. He does it. This is something you need to do. You should meet this person. Here's an intro, right? It's like two or three things that he did that's definitely changed our path as a business. That he's given us offer to like keep in touch, and that he'd give some input on some of the homework that he gave us, right? And it was just like, I was for days. It was just like in cloud nine, like, because these things don't happen, right? It's someone who gets what we said, private jet, stop in at a conference, talks for an hour, he's out.
Yeah.
His audience fills like auditoriums, right?
Yep.
I was sitting at my dining room table talking to this gentleman, and he was like invested in our time. He was there. He was engaged. It was really nice to see that someone at that level is just like a humble, decent person that just wants to help.
It's not a facade, right? I mean, it's genuine. But I mean, you must have felt from this is that you don't need this at this point because you're using SeatKey. You've got some pre-orders. You've got a lot of feedback in the market. But when a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk says something like, "Listen, you should meet this person, and I'm going to follow up with it," it's not within his realm to say that and do it lightly. He's got to believe in what you guys are doing.
Yeah, his reaction from the get-go was, I don't know if you can believe this, but it's like, this is fucking amazing, right? Like, and it's one of those things that he sees brands and pitches and companies all day, every day, until he closes his eyes at night, right? And for someone to have that kind of like guttural reaction to something that we're doing, it really gave us some more fuel for our fire, right? Like that if someone like him that's exposed so much believes in something we do, we might be onto something.
Well, you hit it right on the head, and that's the conversation that we've had this whole time is around brands, really about branding and effective branding. Because Gary spends all of his time, his entire life. What has he done? He's built his brand, and he builds brands. He builds other brands, companies online. So he brings them online, and he gets them into the social space, and really enhances that experience of interacting with that brand. He is a brand guy. So when he looks at something, if you had shown him up with like this plastic, you won the contest and it was a plastic doohickey with a patent leather, wristband that cost $5 from the Bay, the reaction would not have been the same. And I think that's the huge lesson here is that if you're going to invest your time and your effort into something, invest your time and your effort into something that you're not going to be embarrassed to put in front of Gary Vaynerchuk or anybody like that who understands brands. And then when you do it and they get it, that's the validation. It's execution is a piece of this, but God, brand building is so important. So important.
Yeah, it was. I think I said the word huge like maybe 70 times during that conversation because he didn't have time, rightfully so, to check out anything that we've done, right? Like he hasn't seen anything, and that instinctive reaction, that it was authentic, right? It was like he doesn't. I've known him for an hour, right? Yeah. So this is a guess, but it doesn't seem like he has time for bullshit,
right?
No. He doesn't need to like kind of like placate people and things like that. He'll call it like. I'd like to think that if our product, our company was crap, he would have called us out on it, but he would probably say, okay, this is how you can make it great.
But he also probably wouldn't have made some introductions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Introducing to his network, which is a huge move that you don't bring people into like your network if you're not cool with it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the biggest thing is like when he's like, do you know Kevin Rose, right? Like, and if you're like an internet geek, if you know anything about like startups and investment, things like that, or just Dig, you're a fan of Dig, right? I was like, yeah, I know Kevin Rose. Do you know Kevin Rose?
Sure,
like,
of course.
Yeah, he's my best friend. Let me introduce you to him. I was like, oh, that's kind of very cool. I very much appreciate this, Mr. Vaynerchuk.
Mr. Vaynerchuk. So even having a relationship with Gary V and his elaborate network, that's only one piece of this puzzle. I mean, it's not a guarantee. We talk about serendipity and luck. Somebody wants to find serendipity to me is just basically shit luck, right? And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And you need luck on your side. You need this, right? It opens up avenues to be associated with Gary or to, to get his help, or even just him to facilitate introductions, or even down at the lowest piece for him to get excited about your product. Right? It's energizing. But the real question is how are you going to sell and market this? I mean, how do you do that? The whole goal here is to create a little bit of awareness. You're using SeatGeek. You've got you've got your marketing skills and your design skills, but pushing this out so people can find it. Big challenge. How are you going to do this? What are some of the key ways or key lessons that you're going to be doing here?
One of the things that we're going to be doing is also kind of making that balance, right? Like, because we know the product window is smaller when we talk about the Apple ecosystem,
sure,
but we still want to keep that exclusivity, that we're going to reach out to online and traditional like brick and mortar retailers and sell through there. So we have some deals in place, like verbal deals right now, that once we start shipping, we're going to have, let's say in Ottawa, we're going to have maybe 1 or 2 stores. In Toronto, the same thing. That it's going to be one of those things that, like we talked about, how we don't want people, our customers, their kind of psyche has to be, we want to get a Deckster, is we want to get a Nano watch, right? So where you're going to score a Deckster, we're going to go to this sneaker shop. We're going to go to this record shop, or wherever, because we're really tied into fashion and music, and a lot of it's hip hop based, but also like punk and grunge and rock, right? Like just like more of like that DIY attitude, that it's like a bit of a chip on our shoulder and stuff like that. So we're gonna seek out other retail brands, and they're usually more independent. We are not really interested in talking to chains and things like that, right? Like, and so we're gonna do that and do a slow kind of introduction to the market that way, that we're going to try a launch with 5 stores, and then 5 retailers, and then maybe build that over the summer into 10 each, and then try to build a swell that by back to school and Christmas, that a lot of that those deals will be in place. Hopefully we'll be doing new fulfillment orders for them, but then a lot of it's the direct to consumer, that we want to be involved in a lot of cultural events like concerts and things like that, giveaways, just to try to get the word out there, but also like be involved in the community. That it ties back into our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and then ultimately drives back to Deckster.ca, where it's direct to consumer. So the direct to consumer is a huge play eventually, but we know that without partnerships with the right retailers and the right people, that it'll be a lot harder climb at that point. So that's our goal.
When is it? Ultimately, when does the product actually ship? When are you going to actually see product going out the door?
So we're waiting on final inspection in about 5 days for getting everything, to get like our signature, to make sure that the suppliers can follow through on the quality and the numbers that we're looking for, right? We're looking to release 1,000 products with about 6 SKUs, so 6 different variants of it.
Yeah.
And so that date now is July. So we're mid-July, we'll be shipping.
That's great.
And for our pre-orders, we'll be shipping sooner, because we've kind of expedited that people who showed us support and were fans from almost the beginning, that we launched our site on Chinese New Year's Eve, right? 6 hours later, we had a pre-order from Texas.
Yeah, gotta love it.
So that was like, wow, right?
I love the internet.
Yeah, I love the internet, right? So this kid or this man or gentleman who bought it, it's like, you're gonna get the first one off the line. Like, it's gonna have a CNC serial number. Yeah. Number 1 goes out to Brandon. Yeah. Who right away saw it and said, you know what, I think that's me. I want that.
It's great. And he's been waiting. So
yeah, we've been emailing just like, okay, it's coming, dude.
Swear to God. To God.
We did not move to like Ecuador.
with your $150.
We can live for at least a day or 2 there.
Later, dude. Yeah, exactly. So people can find you, Deckster.ca, Deckster.ca.
That's right, sir. And then SeatGeek, we've got about another few days, weeks to try to crowdsource some funds. It's seekie.com. But another thing about Seekie is, you know what? If anyone has an idea for a product, if you have aspirations for a product company or things like that, submit a project.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the market would tell you if you have something, right?
Well, it's something that, it's too late for me to do on Tether. I got to figure out what my next product is.
Is anyone printing as seen on TV T-shirts anywhere?
That's right. Here you go. That's it.
God.
On web TV, it should say, not just as seen on TV. Well, Dom, listen, I appreciate you coming on. It's a slight departure, but it has a lot to do with the mobile space, because I believe that as you start to accessorize the mobile world, these devices that we're using, it's no different than building a company that builds, or starting a company that builds themes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what you're doing is you're taking the theme and you're wrapping around the device around that. And
I think it's also, you said it's a departure, but I think it's like as we move forward, it's like, isn't everything going to be mobile eventually?
Yeah.
Like chips and memory is getting smaller. You can build an app for any kind of application. You know, it's like why not in a pen? Why not in your glasses, right? Like it's a great future, man.
Well, that's why I'm in the industry. Well, that's why I'm sitting on the sidelines watching the industry pass me by. I'm not sure exactly. That's why I'm involved in the industry.
Yeah, you're a weather vaner, you know?
Exactly. That's right. It's a good way of putting it.
Very useful device.
a weathered vane, exactly.
A weathered vane.
Weathered vane. And when it spins around and around and around, you know that there's some bad stuff happening, right? Which is exactly. Yeah, if I start spinning around.
Dude, this has been really fun. I appreciate the time.
Well, all the best, man. I think that this is a one of many products to come. I love the innovation. I love the attention to detail. The fact that you're manufacturing in North America, the fact that you have the love for the city of Ottawa that I do as well, and the fact that it's an uncompromising product. You're not going to cut corners to get this thing done. The quality of the product will shine from the customized or the handmade leather bands to the slow eject when it pops up there. Those are my two pieces of insight into quality. But for those people who are still watching or listening, this is one of those projects. Go and take a look at Deckster.ca, and you've seen the video already, or you've heard the video. Go and take a look at it and participate, and even support them at Seekie.com, CKIE.com. And then we'll as we launch this, we go through this launch process with you, Dom. We'll follow you and find out what's going on.
Nice. I'm glad to be back anytime, dude.
Well, listen, been speaking with Dom Coballe, who is the co-founder of End Product. Their first product is something called Deckster, Deckster.ca. Dom, I really appreciate you being on the show. You guys who are still watching, still listening, love you for doing that. If you have any feedback about this episode or any other episode of Untether.tv, or if you have some ideas for me about who you'd like to see on it, I'm wide open. Untether@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time on Untether.tv. Thanks, guys.